What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one I want to talk about defensive contributions which FPL have added this season. Should it change the way we think about FPL? I've got some comparisons of different players, lots of numbers to go through as well, so let's get straight into it. So let's start with a quick recap about what FPL have added for this season. Basically it's defensive contributions which are worth a maximum of 2 points in any single match. For defenders you need a combined total of 10 clearances, blocks, interceptions and tackles to get those 2 points. There's no way to earn more than those 2 points in a single match. So if you have a defender that gets 40 clearances, they'll still only earn the 2 points. And like I said, it's combined. So if you get 5 clearances, 5 blocks, great, you still get the 2 points. If it's 3 clearances, 3 blocks, 3 interceptions and 1 tackle, great, you still get the 2 points. You get the idea. For midfielders and forwards, they need 12 combined clearances, blocks, interceptions and tackles, but they also can get ball recovery points as well. For what it's worth, forwards are almost never going to get these points. It's more for defensively minded midfielders, so it's just a way to add to the player pool that we have to choose from. This change should mean we can pick from more players. So if defensive contributions have been implemented last season, these are the players that would have benefited the most. For defenders, Tarkowski would have got an extra 44 points, Murillo 38, Lacroix 34, Collins 32, Branthwaite 32, Kilman 30, Zabani 28, Anderson of Fulham 26, Mykolenko again, another Nottingham Forest defender in this list, 26. One of the £6 million defenders this year, Virgil van Dijk, would have got 22, and Anthony Robinson 22 as well. So as you can see, for the most part, it's going to be centre-backs that benefit the most from this. And the one thing that I try and think about to see how much of an impact this is on FPL is that an assist is worth 3 points. So if Tarkowski's got an extra 44 points, that's almost like having an extra 15 assists, which defenders never hit. So it is quite big. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're only going to be picking centre-backs, but they are now in some cases definitely viable versus fullbacks. In the past, we pretty much only picked defenders for their clean sheet and attacking capability. Now their defensive work will be rewarded as well. For midfielders, it's pretty much all defensive-minded midfielders, as you would expect. So Caicedo 42, Anderson 36, Idrissa Gana Gueye 36, Gomez at Wolves was 36 as well. Norgard 34, but obviously he's gone to Arsenal now. His minutes won't be great. Gravenberch 30, Baleba, I think it is, sorry, at Brighton 30, Cook 30, Lerma 28, Christie 26, and Andre again at Wolves is 26 as well. So it doesn't mean you're going to rush out and fill your team with defensive-minded midfielders, but if you're looking for a cheap option, you might consider them rather than the more attacking players. And again, you know, Caicedo 42 points. If you think that a goal is worth 5 points for a midfielder, that's like him scoring 8 goals. Now, obviously, you know, some of those midfielders that get goals and assists as well will also have got some defensive contributions. So it's not an exact comparison, but it just shows how big this change is to FPL and that it might have some effect on how we pick our teams this year. So I thought I'd go through some defender comparisons to show you how this might impact our thinking a little bit going into the new season. So first of all, I've got Crystal Palace defenders. Mark Gueye, who's 4.5 million this year. Lacroix is 5 million, and then Munoz is 5.5. And I've got their starts, goals, assists and total points from last season, then their defensive contribution points if that had been a thing last year, and then added that together to make a new total. So for Gueye, he scored 3 goals, 2 assists, 116 points total, and got 14 defensive contribution points. His new total was 130. So not bad for a 4.5 million defender, to be fair. Lacroix, on the other hand, didn't get quite as many attacking returns, only 1 goal, and then matched Gueye with 2 assists. He scored 114 points in 1 more start, but he got 34 defensive contribution points. So that put him on 148. Now, of course, in FPL, it would be very easy if you could just always buy the more expensive player. At some point, you've got to buy some cheaper options. And I'm not necessarily saying that Lacroix is worth more, but when you drill down a bit further, Mark Gueye scoring 3 goals is not that common in a season. In the previous 3 seasons, he'd only had 3 total. And I think if anyone was, you know, deciding who was the bigger goal threat between the two, it would probably be Lacroix. So there's already an 18-point difference. And if they started a similar amount of games next year, I would expect Lacroix to outscore in terms of attacking returns. So that gap in their totals goes up even more. And all of a sudden, that 0.5 million might be worth paying. It's also worth pointing out for defensive contribution points that they are capable of getting them in difficult fixtures as well. So traditionally for a defender, you want great fixtures for goals, assists and clean sheets. And you still want that from your defenders, of course. But now, if you get stuck with a defender that's very good for defensive contributions and they've got some tough fixtures coming up, but you've got transfers to use elsewhere, that defender is a lot better because they can get a bunch of blocks and clearances in those more difficult games. You're not going to get that mega score, of course, unless they nick a clean sheet, but you are going to get that kind of 4-pointer or 5-pointer rather than just 1 or 2. So it's definitely something to think about. And I think an even more interesting comparison is Lacroix to Munoz, because last year Munoz was an absolute beast when it came to attacking returns. 4 goals, 6 assists. That put him on 142 points total, but he only got 14 defensive contributions. So that would have put his new total at 156. So he would have only outscored Lacroix by 8 points, and he started 2 more games, which is not that much of a difference. So the takeaway here might not be you've got to buy Lacroix instead of Gay and find that 0.5. It might be that if you've got Munoz, it could just be worth saving 0.5 million and getting the defensive contribution player instead. Now, this is not an exact science because it's also worth pointing out the bonus point system has slightly changed for tackles. So Munoz might have come out with a few more bonus points last year, but the gap is not that big. So it's not to say ignore Munoz. I think having players that are going to go and get you goals and assists is much more exciting when you're watching games for FPL. But if you're looking for that trickle of points from clearances, blocks, interceptions, tackles, etc., Lacroix is definitely an option versus Munoz, and it saves you 0.5. So here's another good comparison. Kerkez versus Van Dijk for Liverpool. They're both 6 million options this year. Last season, Kerkez started 38 games for Bournemouth, so every single match. Got 2 goals, 6 assists, and that was a total of 134 points, and he got 4 defensive contribution points. So that would have put him on 138. For Van Dijk, he started 1 less game, so 37, got 3 goals, 1 assist, so 1 more goal than Kerkez, about half the attacking returns overall, and that put him on 143 points. But he would have got 22 defensive contribution points last year, putting him on 165. Which is much better than Kerkez's total. Now, people are going to rightly point out that Liverpool got more clean sheets, which is correct. Kerkez, I think, got 9 and Van Dijk got 14. So there's a difference of 5. So 4 points for a clean sheet. If you add 20 points onto Kerkez's total, that's then 158. Now, before anyone points it out, I know that if Bournemouth had got more clean sheets, Kerkez might have got more bonus. But for now, I'm just going to add on the 20. So there's still a 7-point difference. Van Dijk is still ahead of him, even though he got half the attacking returns because of how many defensive contribution points he would have got. When you drill down even further, you're going into a new season at a new club. Do I think Kerkez is first choice? Absolutely. But I don't think it means he plays every game. If Robertson is still there at the start of the season, he might play the odd easier match, giving Kerkez less time to go and get those attacking returns. And also for defensive contributions, you want your player on the pitch so they can get those clearances, blocks, interceptions. Yes, it's great if a player plays 61 minutes and then gets subbed off and locks the clean sheet, but that doesn't happen as often as we would like. So if I'm picking between these two players and I've added on the clean sheet points for Kerkez and he's still behind Van Dijk and I can't guarantee that he's going to start every single game, that's where my thinking is maybe a little bit different versus last year. Last year, people might look at it and say, okay, Kerkez is not going to start necessarily as many games. Like, he might start 9 in 10. I'm not saying he's getting benched every other game, but I'm going to go for the upside because of how attacking he is. Whereas now, Van Dijk's exactly the same price. He's capable of scoring goals, as we've seen multiple times. He's definitely going to start every single game he's fit and available for, and he's going to chip in with more defensive contribution points. When you put it like that for this season, to me, it feels not a no-brainer necessarily, but it feels the right choice to go for Van Dijk. Unless you're 100% certain Kerkez is starting every game. And I just don't think anyone can do that. So again, it's just another example of how our thinking might have to change a little bit this season. So So by this point, we've probably all seen multiple times the 44 defensive contribution points that Tarkowski would have got last year. But let's compare him to Mykolenko, who's 0.5 million cheaper. Because in a video the other day, I said Mykolenko's not worth going for. You should just pay the 0.5 more. Is that true? Well, last year, Mykolenko, 35 starts, 1 goal, 3 assists. He got 121 points and 14 defensive contributions. So we did chip in a little bit with that as well. That put him on 135. For Tarkowski, he started 2 less games. And obviously, usually you wouldn't expect that. If he's fit and available, he's starting every single game. So him and Mykolenko should be pretty equal on that. So you can add a few more points on for that as it is. 1 goal, 1 assist. So again, half the attacking returns. 105 points, but he got 44 defensive contributions, put him on 149. So again, he is the better option. Is that worth 0.5 million? Not necessarily, but he's another player that's capable of scoring, usually would start the same amount of games, and there is maybe a little bit more in terms of durability, because if you get stuck with your Everton defender, Mykolenko or Tarkowski, they've got a difficult game coming up. Who's more likely to get points from those games? It's going to be Tarkowski, because I don't think Mykolenko, despite the 3 assists, is all that attacking. And the more difficult fixture, the harder it is to get the attacking returns, but maybe the easier it is to get those defensive points. So I think Tarkowski is looking like a really strong option to open the season, especially with the fixtures that Everton have got. Mykolenko, I wouldn't write him off completely, but for 5 million, I'm thinking about the amount of points Lacroix would have got with better goal threat. Maybe he's a better option. And it's not to say, by the way, that fixtures don't matter, because of course they do. If you can get clean sheets and bonus, that's still great. But if you can get all that plus the defensive contributions on top, that might be even better. So on this graphic, I've got the defenders and midfielders with the best defensive contributions per 90 minutes for last season. This is taken from a spreadsheet that I will put in the description below. Thanks to Sam for sending that on to me. Obviously, this is on a per 90 basis. So if you've got a player that's not fully nailed on to play every game for the full match, they're not going to be quite as good as these numbers. So just keep that in mind. So Tarkowski, surprise, surprise for defenders, is at the top, 10.96. Murillo, 10.6. And Lacroix, 10.02. And then Botman for Newcastle. If he can get fit and remain fit, he also gets 10 per 90. So on average, they're doing this every single game. Now, obviously, it won't work out like that. Sometimes they might get 5 in one game, 15 in another. But those 4 players are going to rack up a lot of points if they can stay fit and available. Branthwaite just behind on 9.82. Senesi at Bournemouth, who should come back into the team now, Howson's gone, unless they sign new centre-backs, 9.58, and he's 4.5 million. So worth looking at. Anderson for Fulham, 9.56, also 4.5 million. Collins at Brentford. I know a lot of people are thinking about Lewis Potter, just in case he plays in a more attacking role. Now he's been listed as a defender. But Collins is a bit of a beast as well for picking up these, defensive contributions, 9.24 per 90. Agbadou at Wolves, I think he's another he's 4.5 million for Wolves. Their fixtures to open up, by the way, if I just look it up here. So Man City at home, not great. Bournemouth away is not great either, but again, got to rewire our thinking. If he's on my bench and I get really stuck, maybe he goes and gets 10 clearances, blocks, interceptions, tackles. Everton at home in 3, not bad at all. Newcastle away, Leeds at home in 5. And they've also got Sunderland away and Burnley at home in game weeks 8 and 9. So longer term, Agbadou, 4.5 million to sit on your bench most weeks, not bad. Richards at Palace, I didn't put him on the comparison earlier, but he's actually better than Gay when it comes to defensive contributions specifically. And then Kilman at West Ham, 8.79. For midfielders, Casemiro is on 15.51. But again, he doesn't necessarily always play 90 minutes. And I'm not sure he's anywhere near guaranteed to start every single game for Man United this season. Far from it. Christie at Bournemouth, 13.77. Yarmouk at Brentford, 13.42. Bentancur, if he can become a staple part of that 11 for Thomas Frank, 13.39. Anderson at Forest, I've mentioned him a lot in videos already, 13.36, 5.5 million player. Andre at Wolves is just over 13. Baleba at Brighton, 12.67, only 5 million. Then you've got Adams, Wharton, Idrissa Gana Gay, and Caicedo on 12.2. Caicedo, by the way, started 38 games last year. So if anything, he is consistent. He might not get you many goals and assists, but he's going to chip in with those defensive contribution points, and he's definitely going to play every game that he's fit for. So just to show you where cheap midfielders might fit into our thinking this season, I've got this table of select midfielders, their price, obviously who they are, how many starts they had last season, and basically I've ordered it by their new total of points. So it's last season's points plus defensive contributions. So as you can see right at the top, Semenyo 169 points, Rodgers 161, but they're both 7 million. So they're not super expensive, but they're not cheap either. Jacob Murphy, who I don't think is going to have consistent minutes this year. And if you go down the list, you start to get to like Sarr, 6.5 million, 151 points. Mitoma, 6.5 million, 145. Declan Rice, who I think is going to be more popular this season on some set pieces as well, 6.5 million. He would have scored 145. Then you start getting the cheaper options. So Anderson at Forest, 5.5 million, 143 points. Now, obviously, that is not as good as Morgan Rodgers at 161, but it's less than a 20-point difference over the season, and it's a 1.5 million price difference. Now, of course, if you're looking at the opening fixtures thinking, well, Forest fixtures are pretty good, and so are Villa's, and I've got 7 million, then of course you go for the more attacking players still. But if you're happy with the rest of your squad, you don't have that 7. Why not opt to just put in a boring pick like Anderson? It's not exciting, right? I said this last season when everyone said they wanted, points for defensive midfielders and stuff. I really don't think it's exciting to pick these players, but it might be a viable strategy now if you're looking to save money in these attacking positions. McAllister for Liverpool did pretty good, 142 points, but he's still 6.5. Caicedo 140, 5.5. Tielemans for Villa comes in at 6 million. He would have gone from 121 points to 139. So he is 22 points behind Rodgers for the season, 1 million less. Somebody needs to take penalties for Villa this year. Rashford's gone, Sensio's gone. I don't think it'll be Watkins. Could it be Rodgers, McGinn, maybe Tielemans? We'll have to find out. If Tielemans gets penalties, I think everyone will be looking at him for 6 million. Tonali at Newcastle would have got 124 points, but he only started 28 games. And you'd think that he was pretty much first choice when he's fit and available. He's going to start most games. So to compare that to, say, Iwobi, 158 points, okay, it's quite a bit more, but he started 35. And he's 6.5 million. So Tonali at 5.5 could be a look in. And if you're looking at 5 million players, Cook and Christie for Bournemouth, 112 and 102 points would have been their new totals. They only started 32 and 27. Like if Christie can come back in and play every single game, for 5 million, that's a pretty good option. And by the way, these could be players to sit on the bench most weeks. Just that if you get stuck, they're there to be used. Like you don't want to make a transfer on anyone else. You just play them for 1 week, and they might go and get you an extra 2 points because of the defensive contributions. So I think we're still wired to look for the attacking players. Like who's going to play from Sunderland or Leeds for 5.5 million? Should we be going for Callum Hudson-Odoi for 6 million? I'm not sure whether he's the kind of pick. I think unless you can guarantee those cheap, 5.5 attacking midfielders are nailed on and they're likely to get a good amount of attacking returns, I'm not sure they're now worth going for versus these more defensive players that are at least going to start. There probably is some balance to be had there, but they are definitely worth considering, the defensive-minded ones. So just a quick summary. I think defensive contributions are important, but they haven't been implemented in a way where they're the be-all and end-all, where that's the only thing you should think about. But I do think the people that will do the best this season are probably the ones that cotton on to this being a thing and something we should take seriously from the get-go. It certainly doesn't mean that we should only buy centre-backs, but we should rewire our brains to now say centre-backs could definitely be viable and in a lot of cases might even be the better option than the full-back or the wing-back. For shorter-term moves, I think I still just about favour attacking potential. Like, if you're saying to me right now, I'm putting my Game Week 1 squad together, I definitely want a Crystal Palace player, but I'm also definitely going to wildcard in Game Week 5, so I only need them for 4 weeks. I'd probably still try and pay the extra money for Munoz, rather than going for the defensive contributions from Lacroix. But if you're putting your team together saying, I want these kind of 2 to 3 defenders to be longer term picks so I don't have to worry about them, in that case, I'd probably go for those defensive contributions. It's not to say that Munoz, for example, can't go and get a load of attacking returns, but I think the players that are very good for contributions, defensive ones, of course, it's quite long-winded to have to keep saying that, will give you that more consistent trickle of points over a long period. At least that's how I think it'll play out. Ultimately, until we play this season, it's going to be really difficult to know how much emphasis to put on this. But I do think it's definitely worth thinking about. Defenders with good defensive contributions, once again, can be used in tougher fixtures. So it does make them quite good bench cover. So again, if you get stuck and they've got a difficult fixture, it's not as bad necessarily this season to play them as it might have been in previous seasons. Like last year, if you'd had a really, a defender with okay attacking potential and a bad fixture, you're thinking there's no clean sheet. They're probably not getting an attack and return either. Now they might hit those 10 contributions and get you those extra 2 points. And if they only concede once, that might be a 4-pointer. And who knows, maybe they get bonus as well. Probably not, but you never know. I definitely don't think this means we need to start playing 5 at the back every week. Like some weeks it might be viable. Again, let's say you're stuck with some injuries or suspensions up front. It's only for like one game. Maybe you are now more comfortable playing a back 4 or a back 5. But I don't think that's going to be the way we should play every single week. It's still going to be worthwhile probably having like a 4 or a 4.5 million defender on your bench for value purposes so you can spend more money in attack. But in some cases, you might play 4 or 5 at the back. But I don't think that's going to be the norm. I still think 3-4-3 and 3-5-2 is probably going to work out longer term. I think, again, until it plays out, it's difficult to say. But the way I'm envisioning it is potentially for my team. I think in my first draft, I had 5 centre-backs, by the way. So I've already kind of changed my thinking a little bit. But maybe defensive transfers are not where I'm going to spend my moves. And so if I get players in that are going to be good over the long term, I can just concentrate my moves on attackers instead. Like moving around premiums or whatever it might be. Or I haven't figured out the entire strategy. But that's, some of the stuff that could happen. And then lastly, defensive midfielders are viable. More so than they've ever been. I don't think it's something to get excited about. I probably won't have like 2, 3, 4 in my team. It'll probably be like 1 maximum. But I think having that kind of player on the bench most weeks could be quite useful to bail you out of, an issue you're having in your team, or if you need someone off the bench. And again, just to come back to the fixtures. And by the way, I think some people have got the mindset that in a good fixture, you're never going to get these contributions. I don't think that's true. I just think it means you can also get them in bad fixtures. And so if you've got them on your bench and they've got a bad fixture, it's less of a worry. So I think there's probably a balance to be had. You don't want to fill your team with 15 players. Well, goalkeepers don't count, right? 13 outfield players that are just good for defensive contributions. But I think having a few in there, like 3 to 5, maybe. I'm just picking numbers out of the air, to be honest. 3 to 5 could definitely be worthwhile. And in defense, I'd really think about it. And look, it's only... I'm recording this on Wednesday. It's going out on Thursday. The first week FPL's come out. In 2 weeks before the Game Week 1 deadline, there might be a bunch of 5.5 million midfielders that are super attacking, that are nailed on, that just emerge from nowhere because a transfer happens or something like that. And that might change our thinking again. But right now, I'm looking at Caicedo, Anderson, maybe like a Tonali, Christie, someone like that. And thinking they could be viable. Anyway, let me know what you think about these changes. How has it affected your thinking? Which of these players do you have in your squad? Leave a comment below. If you have enjoyed that video and found it useful, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you again soon for another video.